I really do think the fallout or outcome from the 2024 rap civil war is not what we could have expected. Sure, for those on certain sides of the aisle, they would have backed their favorite rappers to win. I was extremely confident that Kendrick would probably come out on top. But the manner in which that happened and how the situation has spiraled later on, for Drake in particular, is not something I think most people would have predicted. We're coming up to almost a year of this now, and where exactly are the major players? Kendrick is fresh off of his surprise GNX drop in November of last year, further rubber stamping the year as his, and fueling even more excitement for his upcoming Super Bowl performance. J. Cole is seemingly nowhere to be seen, aside from a reissue of 2014 Forest Hills Drive, and finally uploading those classic mixtapes to streaming services. It's basically been radio silence from him, aside from that really strange grippy song, of course. And then we come to Drake himself. At the time of writing this, it's been around 8 months since the height of the beef. On social media, of course, Champagne Pappy has been as active as ever, with frequent flexing Instagram posts as usual, on top of a weird obsession with promoting the gambling company Stake alongside literally some of the worst people on the internet. Musically, it has been relatively quiet by Drake standards. In the aftermath of the beef, he dropped a few features, some loosies, and his 100 gig project, but that quickly came and went. Since then, we've heard basically nothing musically from Drake, which is odd considering just how much he tends to be either dropping music or being on tour. Then, on November 22nd, Kendrick drops GNX out of nowhere to commercial and critical success. And naturally, laced throughout that album are allusions and references to the beef that had just transpired. I was of course very intrigued as to see how and if Drake would respond. The sensible thing would be probably just ignore it, continue to be the highest streamed rapper in the world, and just not really reference the beef. What I expected was maybe some lackluster response in the vein of The Heart Part 6. Speaking of The Heart Part 6, the Drake one of course, now that Kendrick has reclaimed that title, I was convinced that would go down as maybe the lamest moment in Drake's career. It was widely panned, memes were made, Drake was defending himself against things Kendrick never even mentioned. It was just a complete mess. And somehow, Drake proved me wrong with what would happen a few days after GNX dropped. Knowing he'd lost in the court of public opinion, Drake turned to the actual courts. Setting the scene here, on November 25th, Drake appeared on a stream with streamer and professional bootlicker XQC. Drake made a variety of statements during the stream, including saying that you need facts to take me out, fairy tales won't do it, and that his mind, body, and soul are fully intact.
I'm here, as you can see, fully intact, mind, body, and soul, in case you were wondering. Right?
Mind, body, and soul.
Mind, body, and soul. You need facts to take me out. Fairy tales won't do it.
He took the opportunity to be offended by Weeknd songs playing and bizarrely called Steve Lacy a fragile op. That very same day, the same day he claimed his mind, body, and soul was still intact, he did the equivalent of telling the teacher that someone hurt his feelings. Drake actually filed a complaint against Universal Music Group, his own record label technically, alleging that they had conspired to inflate the popularity of Kendrick's Not Like Us in an attempt to damage his reputation by falsely alleging that he is a PDF file. UMG were very quick to deny the accusations from the first complaint. They stated, quote, "The suggestion that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. We employ the highest ethical practices in our marketing and promotional campaigns. No amount of contrived and absurd legal arguments in this pre-action submission can mask the fact that fans choose the music they want to hear." And then, in January of this year, just a few days before me making this video, Drake filed an actual lawsuit. Now, we're going to go into this lawsuit. Before I go any further, I do have to disclose that I did go to law school, but I'll be trying my best to approach this from a rap fan's perspective rather than anything super legal or academic or anything like that. The opening section exists to strongly imply that Not Like Us is directly responsible for the incident at his home where a security guard was shot and hospitalized. Immediately conflating correlation with causation, of course. The lawsuit goes on to say that, quote, UMG approved, published, and launched a campaign to create a viral hit out of a rap track that falsely accuses Drake of being a PDF file and calls for violent retribution against him. It's fucking insane that I'm even uttering these words. Considering the fact that on Family Matters, Drake spent half the song talking about how much his stick talks and who needs a shell from the clip, I don't mind that shit. It's a rap beef. Talk that shit, it's fine. But Not Like Us, quote, calling for violent retribution is beyond a fucking reach. First of all, it's rap. Second, Drake has spent the last 10 years creating this new gangster persona, only to immediately go and become the world's biggest Karen as soon as someone gives that energy back to him. The lawsuit goes on to claim that Not Like Us suggests that, quote, the public should resort to vigilante justice in response, in reference to Drake being called a predator. I think the only line that could be in reference to is the whole, I think that Oakland show is going to be your last stop. Again, it doesn't even really matter. It's the realm it's being accused in, which is fucking insane. The insidious way that Drake attempts to hang on to the shred of rap credibility he might have left follows this. He cleverly says, or well, his lawyers of course, they say that the lawsuit is not about Kendrick, but it's about UMG and how they profit from and exploit Drake. Just as a side note, the phrasing of the entire lawsuit is comedy gold. Take this, for example, in reference to the Not Like Us music video. The video bolsters the same message by, for example, showing images associated with sex trafficking and juxtaposing the game of hopscotch with lyrics accusing Drake of trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. Drake's main claim here is that UMG saw an opportunity to strike gold because they can utilize these false claims about Drake to create a viral hit defaming him. He claims that UMG are in this elaborate plan to devalue Drake's music as his deal comes to an end, whilst inflating the value of Kendrick's music simultaneously. Now, my main issue with this section of the lawsuit is that it fundamentally misunderstands organic exponential growth of music and just how virality works. Yes, I'm sure that when those at the top of the company saw the immediate impact of Not Like Us, they began pushing it and suggesting it more and more to listeners. That's basically how anything super popular works. But it fails to recognize the basics. Why was it making that impact in the first place? 1, the song fucking slaps. 2, it's catchy as shit. 3, Kendrick Lamar is one of the biggest rappers in the world in his own right. And 4, the entire world is watching Kendrick and Drake at the height of the beef. It doesn't require this elaborate ploy to, quote, devalue Drake's music for Not Like Us to snowball into what it's become. Again, I'm not denying that record labels are fucking shady and do shady things. I have no doubt, but are we pretending like Drake is not the beneficiary of, quote, artificially inflating popularity? Remember when Scorpion dropped and his face was literally every single playlist on Spotify? But of course, that feeds into Drake's image and ego, so that's completely fine, of course. The lawsuit then goes on to claim that UMG is effectively milking the song for profit, eventually by having a hand in Kendrick play the Super Bowl halftime show. It's funny because the motivation is so transparent. Drake is scared of Kendrick calling him a predator at America's largest sporting event. It's really that simple. But you can't just say that, of course. You have to spin this crazy, intricate web of shit. Drake also takes issue with the fact that copyright strikes were removed from YouTube and streams for Not Like Us for the defamatory comments to spread like wildfire. Section 14 of the lawsuit is the insane one. Drake claims that too many people believe Kendrick's lyrics. As voluminous public commentary confirms, the average listener or viewer has understood the defamatory material to reflect the truth rather than art or hyperbole. In the words of one commentator, now everybody believes that Drake loves touching children. Maybe Drake would have a leg to stand on if he wasn't doing the same shit. Again, rap beef is not about who has the most dirt on the other person or who can expose the most shit or anything like that. It's fundamentally about, can you humiliate and beat your opponent in the most creative and captivating way possible? If Drake believes this section 14, would it also not stand that, quote, everybody believes Kendrick Lamar's an abuser, as he suggests on Family Matters, just because Drake said it in a song? The reason why nobody believed that is because it didn't track with Kendrick's persona and behavior. Simple. Drake then goes on to paint himself as the victim of something he effectively started, remember, amidst fears to his safety, public perception, and so on. We are literally being gaslit by a legal document. The whole thing is just The Heart Part 6, but just formalized. Quote, UMG may spin this complaint as a rap beef gone legal, but this lawsuit is not about a war of words between the artists. That's literally what it is. By putting this little nugget of information in there, it's the flimsy shield Drake can protect himself with when claims that he's really butthurt eventually come his way. He could be like, nah, it's not about Kendrick, it's about UMG, when we all know that's bullshit. I'm actually quite jealous of the breakdown and timeline of events throughout the rest of the lawsuit. It's low-key almost more in depth than the one I did. I could go line by line, but honestly, there's about 3 pages of stuff that effectively boils down to please stop calling me a... Another side note, some of the lawsuit is just factually incorrect too. At one point, in reference to the quote, "I think Oakland gonna be your last stop" bar, the lawsuit states that that's where Kendrick Lamar grew up. It's ironic that the lawsuit that spends so much time analyzing the lyrics of Not Like Us can't even seem to locate where Kendrick is from. Literally everyone in the rap world knows that Kendrick is from Compton and not Oakland. The line in the lawsuit, quote, "At the end of the recording, the lyrics threateningly repeat, hey, 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 run for your life, hey, 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 run for your life," is more comedy fucking gold. I know I keep saying every part is the craziest part, but this is also the craziest part. In section 62, the lawsuit claims, and I'm not making this up, I swear on my life, the lawsuit claims that Kendrick Lamar is being anti-Semitic because he called Drake a colonizer. What the fuck? It says, quote, "The recording alludes to Drake's Jewish heritage, saying that Drake is not a colleague but a fucking colonizer." Now, if you've heard Not Like Us literally once, you'll know that this is in reference to the entire preceding verse where Kendrick breaks down Drake's relationship to popular black Atlanta artists. Nowhere, anywhere in the song does he even make a passing reference to Drake being Jewish. Section 68 is, once again, literally just the heart part 6. The defamatory material is false. The allegations against Drake are unequivocally false. Drake has never been charged with, indicted for, or convicted of any charges of sexual violence or assault, including but not limited to sexual violence against a minor. Nor has Drake ever engaged in an inappropriate romantic or sexual behavior with a minor. Drake then goes back to imply that the attack on his home is a direct result of UMG publishing defamatory material before going on to dissect the Not Like Us music video. Again, this section does like a genuinely really good job of breaking down some of the Not Like Us video. You have to give props to the attention they paid. The next section is where it gets particularly tasty, where Drake claims UMG used social media to promote the defamatory material to inflate its popularity. The lawsuit cites various tweets and Instagram posts that had either been tweeted, retweeted, or liked by UMG accounts. It also goes on to claim that UMG paid various people and used bots to further inflate Not Like Us's popularity. Again, I'm sure this most likely happens within large record labels at some points. But in this instance, it flat out just ignores the real social and cultural significance of the song. I have to step back because I cannot believe this whole section exists, and an entire lawsuit actually exists with citations to Zias and Kaisanat reactions. So many of the claims are so far removed from reality, it's crazy. Section 143 implies that the primary reason Reactors were so quick to drop their videos was the financial incentive. Now, although I have nowhere near the audience of any of these huge reactors, I do have experience making those kind of reaction videos. I spent 5 years on this channel doing that exact same thing. And I can tell you from personal experience, when you're excited to hear something from your favorite artist, you aren't thinking about that monetization. The reason every reactor on the fucking planet couldn't wait to drop their Not Like Us reactions is because it was an unprecedented cultural moment. Even unmonetized, those videos are still dropping, and there's no doubt about that. The lawsuit is technically correct in saying, quote, "These content creators could not have legally republished the defamatory material in full or profited from their reaction videos without UMG first whitelisting the recording," end quote. It's sneaky and clever because it just completely fails to acknowledge the fact that everyone was interested because of the fact that it's Drake and Kendrick Lamar beefing. That statement is technically true, but it also begs the question, so what? What's the relevance? This whole section and the entire lawsuit is like Family Matters, a barrage of widespreading but unfocused jabs. Drake goes on to be mad that the song was discussed on NPR and Joe Rogan podcasts, just stating facts at this point without any real point to make. Yes, Joe Rogan, literally the biggest podcaster in the world, is probably going to discuss one of the biggest pop culture moments of the year. What's your point? One of my favorite sections is 158, where UMG is hilariously portrayed as a troll just tee-heeing Drake. Quote, "After receiving 2 notices from Drake about the falsity of the allegations and a description of the severe harm he suffered as a result, UMG took no steps to address the matter. To the contrary, UMG continued to promote and license the defamatory material, including through numerous social media posts, boasting of the recording's success and negotiating and paying for the recording to be nominated at the 2025 Grammys and played at the Super Bowl. Again, an objectively hilarious passage. Drake claims that, quote, UMG declined to do anything to assist Drake, including even going so far as refusing to agree to mediate with Drake. UMG instead insisted that it bore no responsibility for the harm Drake had suffered and represented that if Drake sued UMG, UMG would respond by bringing claims against Kendrick Lamar, and intimated that Drake would face public ridicule for the perception that he had sued another rapper. Do you see how sneaky this brother is? He set himself up at the start by saying, this isn't about Kendrick, this is about UMG, when it's clearly about Kendrick. And the inevitable ridicule that will come his way, he can say, no, but see, it wasn't about Kendrick, it was about UMG, when we all know that's bullshit. It's the inconsistency and argument that baffles me, as well as the flat-out contradiction. It legitimately feels like some alt-right MAGA shit at points. Quote, to the reasonable listener, any future allegations levied by Lamar against Drake would be based in truth, an undisclosed fact, not rumor or opinion. This is in section 168 in reference to Euphoria, where Kendrick said, don't tell a lie about me, I won't tell the truth about you. One, it's a fucking diss song. Did anyone really believe Tupac when he said, that's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker? No, not really. It's just some disrespectful shit to say to someone on a diss track. It just proves Kendrick's point that Drake is a beneficiary of the culture rather than a part of it. He fundamentally doesn't understand the nature and point of diss tracks. Using this very same logic, Drake dropped 2 separate tracks alleging Kendrick is a domestic abuser, something that is potentially threatening to Kendrick's public perception and safety, right? Well, no, because those tracks were fucking lame. I promise you it's as simple as that. It then goes down this bizarre, unrelated rabbit hole of just a string of YouTube and Twitter comments. They are flat out anti-Semitic comments, and I won't repeat them, of course, but the correlation with Not Like Us is paper thin at best. Yes, there are horrible people on the internet, some who are racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, and more. Those people did not just happen into existence the minute Kendrick dropped Not Like Us. It would be, of course, a different conversation if that song even made a passing reference to Drake's religion, but it doesn't. Section 184 states, quote, belief in the truth of the defamatory material persisted in direct response to Drake's denial of the claims in The Heart Part 6, end quote. Now there's 2 reasons for that. 1, the song is fucking shit. 2, Drake is denying insinuations of claims Kendrick didn't even make, for example, mentioning Millie Bobby Brown when Kendrick never did so. The lawsuit then claims, quote, UMG's conduct caused Drake reputational, financial, physical, and emotional harm, end quote. That is flat out Drake admitting that Not Like Us hurt his feelings so bad he had to tell the teacher, in black and white, clear as day. I don't understand how you can claim to be a seasoned war general on The Heart Part 6 and then claim that the very song you're responding to and you're brushing off your shoulder hurt your feelings so much you had to file a lawsuit. It then goes on, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, it goes on to cite Economist and YouGov polling about Drake's American popularity and says that as a result of Not Like Us, he is now less popular than both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This is the level of arrogance and narcissism that I thought was only a myth. It implies the entitlement or the status quo that Drake should be more popular than literal US presidents in America, when Drake isn't even American. If Drake was so concerned and sensitive about protecting his public image and recognizes how his reputation is so important to his career and finances, as he says verbatim in section 194, then why the fuck would you even risk getting into a beef with Kendrick? Why would you goad him in by mentioning his family members and calling him an abuser? The next section is the really conspiratorial and manipulative shit. Drake claims it's not Kendrick that damaged his reputation, it's UMG. That's false. Again, the lawsuit never addresses why the claims Kendrick made landed and stuck with people. As I discussed in my previous video, Drake has weird lyrics and weird interactions with women. That's not defamation, that's fact. That's the reason the crazy Not Like Us shit hits. The implication towards the end is astonishing and is like a complete denial of reality. It says, quote, these covert tactics cause Drake harm, Stream manipulation, like UMG's purchase of fake streams on Spotify and other platforms, harms the artists like Drake who collect royalties through legitimate streams, because when there is a sharp increase in the number of streams recorded on the platform without a proportional increase in the number of paying subscribers, there is a drop in the unit value of a stream and therefore a drop in the amount of royalties paid to rights holders, end quote. Now, if paying for streams is a common practice, if stream manipulation is a common practice that Drake believes Kendrick is the beneficiary of here, he lives in a world where he, Drake, the most streamed rapper on the planet for 15 years, whose face is literally on every single fucking Spotify playlist when he drops, is somehow not a beneficiary of this system. I don't know how pay to stream works, how common it is, and I won't claim to, but I do believe I have common sense, and if it is a thing, there is not a single more likely beneficiary than Champagne Pappy himself. The closing claims of the lawsuit points out and reiterates the point that UMG knowingly and maliciously distributed defamatory material, causing his financial and emotional harm. Very importantly, the lawsuit says the statements and implications are false and defamatory per se, which means the threshold for proving it is much lower than just flat out defaming someone. Drake is seeking damages, of course, he wants money. But Drake has all the money in the world, so what does he actually want? He wants to protect his reputation and recuperate from the embarrassment of the beef. He wants the world to be absolutely sure that he is not a predator. He effectively wants a public apology from UMG for them to state to the world that everything in Not Like Us is lies. Again, I cannot believe this is happening in the realm of a rap beef. I cannot think of a lamer way of admitting defeat than wanting a legally binding public apology from a record label because your feelings got hurt. If you're this sensitive about shit, don't involve yourself in a beef and start calling out family members. It's that simple. Now, I am not a particular fan of giant record labels and their practices, but their response to Drake's lawsuit is 100% right. UMG responded by saying, quote, "Throughout his career, Drake has intentionally and successfully used UMG to distribute his music and poetry to engage in conventionally outrageous back and forth rap battles to express his feelings about other artists. He now seeks to weaponize the legal process to silence an artist's creative expression and seek damages from UMG for distributing that artist's music." Facts, of course, straight facts. Drake has been involved in rap beefs with a string of artists and UMG stood behind him doing so. Why? Because it's art. You could think it's trash art or amazing art, but it's art. It all boils down to him losing so badly that he cannot take it, so he has to apply the most insane, ridiculous double standard. UMG also make a very good point that a song basically cannot be defamatory by its very nature. They deny engaging in defamation against anyone, but make the important point that all that happened here was that someone wrote a song and someone else didn't like that song. Again, this is 1000% because Drake lost in the court of public opinion. If Kendrick was out here suing UMG because Drake had called him an abuser, I'd also think it was fucking lame. But remember how Kendrick addressed that specific claim? Exactly, he didn't. The reason why? Because nothing about that claim tracked with the character and persona of Kendrick Lamar. That's why the internet wasn't flooded with memes about Kendrick doing that. This lawsuit 100% confirms that Drake is fundamentally out of touch with the spirit of not only hip hop, but just art in general. He is solely a commercial artist now, and this lawsuit only exists to protect his image and by virtue of that, protect his bank balance. He is a company concerned about his stock price. It's like the entire lawsuit, Drake fails to recognize that rap is art, which goes on to further prove Kendrick's claim that Drake isn't of the culture. He's not like us. If this lawsuit was actually won, I don't think it will happen, but if, I think it would be an even bigger blow, ironically, to Drake's image amongst hip-hop fans. It would set a precedent that rappers need to censor themselves in rap beefs for fear of fucking litigation. Imagine Tupac not releasing Hit 'Em Up, Nas not releasing Ether, even Drake not releasing Back to Back. These are cultural touchpoints and milestones in hip-hop. It's anti-art, plain and simple. The timing is very insidious too, with Kendrick's Super Bowl performance coming up, where naturally it might be an awkward decision whether to perform the song or not, depending on legal proceedings. I really fucking hope he does, of course. I think the claims of harassment and defamation are just too hard to prove, especially since it comes in the form of artistic expression. It feels like most of the stuff in here is just to remind everyone that Drake isn't a PDF file. Like I said again, it's just a very extended version of the Heart Part 6. It's worth noting that UMG has now responded to this lawsuit and has filed for it to be dismissed. The filing says, quote, because Drake's petition is related to and was filed in response to UMG's protected free speech, and because Drake cannot carry his burden to establish by clear and specific evidence that he is entitled to pre-suit discovery, the court should dismiss Drake's retaliatory legal action against UMG. Regardless of what happens at the end of this is probably the most anti-hip-hop, anti-art, sore loser things I've ever seen in popular culture. Ever.